Hi, and welcome to another scintillating episode of Guest Safety Officer Lobby Group. And it is a great show. It is. I can't believe it. I know I've got Gary here. I can't help that. He just keeps turning up. But at least we've got the wonderful Dawn Dines, who is the CEO and Chief Campaigner for Stamp Out Spiking, SOS, and she is going to be revealing all sorts of things about spiking, how it happens. But first of all, I suppose I better, do the introductions. Gary gets upset if I don't introduce him because, what can I do? So, introductions. Gary, could you just tell everybody what you do, please?
Thank you, Ian. Just to let you know, the star on my door has been made bigger this week. So I've seen yours. Mine's a lot bigger. Anyway, I'm Gary Twining-Wright. I've been in the industry 37 years. I've done everything in the security-related industry you can do, apart from cybersecurity, which I recently said is really not my bag. CP operative, trainer, working in the NHS as a trainer, dealing with antisocial behaviour and dealing with violence and managing aggression. That's my main bag. Thank you, Ian.
It's a great pleasure. I am Ian Fox, currently host of this wonderful show, and I have a long career within the nighttime economy, nighttime DJ, club designer, promoter. Worked in Tesco's as a manager and Asda, so I've got quite a varied career to the point where I've had, I've sort of advised C-suite executives, etc. CEOs for you, Gary. That's important, people.
Oh, CEOs, not staff in Asda.
Yeah, and of course, it's given me a great generalist experience about what goes on, especially within the nighttime economy and in the security sector. So, but we don't really care about me and you. There's only one person who's important today, and that's our superstar guest, Dawn Dines. Dawn, please tell us about you first of all.
Okay, thank you for that beautiful introduction, Mr. Fox. So I'm Dawn Dines, as you rightly said, CEO and founder of Stamp Out Spiking. And I also have another hat, which I'm not sure if you gentlemen know about. I am the CEO and founder of SOS Global, where we go into schools, colleges and youth groups, and we teach young people about safe sex, drugs and rock and roll in a nutshell. What everyone else likes to sweep under the carpet, we like to dish up on the table. And that's how I started really bringing in this education on spiking awareness. Just doing that typical thing where you put a bit of extra alcohol into somebody's drink and don't tell them, to try and get the party started. And that is the largest form of spiking, is actually adding extra alcohol to someone's drink without their consent or knowledge.
Well, let me first of all say that I think the work that you're doing is fantastic. And what I would like to do straight away, I think one of the things that really struck me when I was listening to all of your time when you were in front of the select committee and on TV, was this bit that you've just mentioned about adding alcohol to someone else's drink to obviously to get them further inebriated, or as you said, to get the party started. That was the biggest shock for me. I never ever considered that. Putting in roofies, Rohypnol, GHB, diazepam, is it?
Benzodiazepam, yeah,
diazepam. That's it. I got that, but I didn't really take into account that adding extra alcohol would also count. Gary, was there anything that sort of, were you aware of all of that?
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, adding things to drinks. I mean, that's one of the oldest ones in the book. I mean, that goes back to school time. I mean, I think you know, I'm not justifying it, but I think every school young lad has tried to pour the extra bit of girlfriend. Let's get things moving, and it is a spiking issue. But it's one of the things where you think it's okay because it's alcohol. You know, it's only a bit of extra alcohol. Let's get the party going, but it's not, because you're doing it without consent.
And it is the largest form of spiking. And do you know what? When you said that it surprised you, Ian, funny enough, when you were talking about when I was called in as the expert witness, some of the ministers looked at me and said, well, adding extra alcohol, is that a form of spiking? And I was like, well, yes, it is, because alcohol is still a drug. Even though it's a socially acceptable drug, it is still a very dangerous and powerful drug. And I think that just starting off by saying, putting, you know, we've done a big poster campaign all across the Southwest, and I've been so lucky that there was a lovely gentleman, Richard Stevens, who runs City Bus in Plymouth, and he's put my posters all over the buses, and he's signed up a bus, and now he's actually making me a double-decker bus, which is amazing, with all of our what different ways and forms that spiking's taking form. So I'm so excited about that. And some of the conversations that some of the bus drivers have shared with me, they've sort of said that, you know, that their son or daughter was on the bus with their father or mother, and they're saying, oh, I didn't realize that was a form of spiking. Oh, I didn't realize you could do it through a cupcake. Oh my God, it happens through a vape. And all these, you know, we've done it on the, well, I've got a question for you gentlemen first.
Yep.
So have either of you ever played the game Never Have I Ever?
No.
No.
Well, it's a drinking game, and it is, I tell you what, don't ever play it with your partner, because they'll never forget your answers. It's a nightmare. It gets you into all sorts of trouble. So if I was to say never have I ever stole a packet of crisps from the shop when I was young, and then if you'd done it, you have to take a little sip of your drink. So it's one of those terrible drinking games that gets you into big bother. But with this game, so what we've done a play on that on our social media campaign and on our poster campaign, and it says, never would I ever stick a double in my friend's drink and not tell them. So it's all supposed to be thought-provoking for those conversations to go, oh, I've done that. And funny enough, in our training program, that's exactly what we start with, is extra alcohol. And most of the people will actually put their hand up and say, yeah, I've done that to my friends. And it's normally people who love you or care about you.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think that's one of the things which we miss out completely, and everybody's done it. You know, whether it's intentional or unintentional, but it has been done. You know, and I've put my hand up, I've done it, but I've not done it intentionally in that sense. But yeah, it is still spiking. You know, put that extra little bit in. The wife wants a little bit. Oh, just put a little extra drop in. You know, we've done it. But when we're looking at a nightclub situation, bits and pieces, again, that probably happens more than anything else out there in the world. That, or get her an extra double, or get him an extra double, and things like that. You know, it happens both sides of the fence.
It does. And, you know, we're a nation of partiers, aren't we? And why shouldn't we be? I love going out and partying. And it's like, you know, it's great fun. The nighttime industry is, you know, as we all know, is really struggling at the moment with all the utility bills. And, you know, we've got some brilliant leaders in the nighttime economy that are really stepping up and trying to show the government that, you know, this is an emergency situation. We've got nightclubs shutting down weekly. And why shouldn't we want to go out and party? It's, you know, it's brilliant fun. That's where we celebrate 18th birthdays, 21st, weddings, funerals. We always go out and have a drink together to celebrate in some form. And this is what cannot be changed, and it can't be made into, you know, I heard recently a couple of 18-year-olds saying, oh, we don't like to go out now because it's, you know, it's a bit dangerous. And I was like, what? You must never say those words. Never be beaten by anybody, especially this small, minuscule group that we've got that are going around poisoning people when they're, and that's exactly what spiking is. It's poisoning. So you're putting something into somebody's body without their consent or knowledge, and that's what we want to challenge.
And I think you're right to do so, but you know, I just want to keep. I just sort of want to go back and just reinforce some of the things that pick up on some of the things that you just said. Yeah, because it's this idea of drinking games. Yeah, the Cardinal Huff Puff Puff was one that we used to play in the army. You know, again, loads of stuff that you don't want to be doing if you want to have any intention of remaining conscious, you know. But we all, you know, we get involved in that. But as I say, this idea that putting an extra drink, a double in your mate's drink for his birthday or her birthday, etc., is commonplace. You know, we encouraged people to do that several years ago, didn't we? To drink to excess, you know, you know, get them the top shelf. You know, we get all the whiskies or whatever, all the spirits in a pint glass and encourage them to down it all in one.
Yeah, optic special.
Yeah, that's right. You know, and then so what just sticking on that particular side is the education side of it about that, you know, with Global SOS. How are you tackling that?
So we go into schools and colleges, and I split all the young people up into 3 sections, like representing the family, the friend, and the police. And it's a bit like a game of Cluedo. I give them clues and evidence that they put some extra vodka in their mate's drink. Are they going to tell the police because this young girl's gone missing? All based on a true story. And the young people love it. They're sat there, they're in their groups, they're representing, and I want them to get into character so that they are feeling, you know, what a parent would feel like, a best friend would feel like, and a police officer. And then I give them chance to question each other. And do you know what? None of these young people, when I say to them, you know, you've put extra vodka in your friend's drink, are you going to tell the police? They're like, no way, we'll get into trouble. And I'm like, well, what if that was an ecstasy tablet? Oh my God, definitely not. We get into major trouble. I'm like, but this is your best friend. They could be in serious problem. Yeah, no, we don't want to get in trouble. So as we split all the young people up and we look at this learning, we can see that actually in life, and we all know this when you get older, you're sort of on your own, really, aren't you? You know, as much as we love to think, oh, you know, I've got loads of pals, I've got my family, I've got everybody. Actually, you come in on your own. You're here, you spend lots of time with lovely people, hopefully, but you're here on your own. And it's trying to show people that they have to be responsible for their own personal safety, which I think is a real grey area. That I think we're going to discuss a few grey areas today. But that is a real grey area, because when people say to me, oh, you're victim blaming, I'm like, no, I'm not trying to victim blame. I'm trying to say that we must all be responsible for our own personal safety, which is totally different from victim blaming.
I'm glad you brought it up, Dawn, because I was, funny enough, the weekend I was help covering some shifts. And one of the venues I was helping out at, so they've got a scan machine and everyone has to be scanned to come in.
Yeah.
So everyone's coming in. And then you're getting a group of people who come in, oh, I've only got my IDs on my phone. Well, sorry, the scan machine doesn't cover that. And these people in their 30s and 40s, and they're not quite comprehending the fact is, it's not about your age coming in. It's about having identification who you are. So if something happens to you, you know, we need to know who you are. And if we've got it on the scan machine, we can find out who you are and we can look after you. And I was speaking to a group of people and I went, are you all friends? Yeah, of course we're all friends. Well, are you? I mean, I'm happy to let you in. You want your IDs, but now, say if something happens to you, just so happens you go unconscious or something like that. How can I access your phone? Will your friends be available for you? And they'll go, yeah, my friends will be available for you. And I said, well, will they? You know, because you're here as a group. Are you just friends? Are you married? Are you acquaintances? Oh, we're just friends. And I said, that's cool, but are you going to be there if something goes wrong? One person took offence to me on that and say, well, how can you ask me this? It's not fair. I said, it is, because I've been in situations where, you know, people have been here, they've gone ill, or something's happened, or they've overdosed, and suddenly there's no friends to be found. We can't access their IDs. And next thing you know, and this isn't just a one-off occurrence, this has happened to me and my teams loads and loads of times. Suddenly that person they're with, they've got no friends. They've got no friends and no ID. And there we are, either pumping chest, having to call an ambulance, or keeping them alive because suddenly they've got no friends. And what got me the whole thing about the thing on Saturday, how this one person took offence, and I was just trying to say exactly what you said. You all need to start taking what's it called, for yourselves. You've got to start looking after yourselves and understanding you're responsible. We're here for you, but we're not responsible for you. We're not a creche. At the end of the day, you've got to be responsible for your own well-being. So as you are a group of people, I do expect you to look after one another, which is very important, but you've also got to look after yourself. And if the event of something does happen, we are here for you. But please, you know, be sensible in what you do. But this one person took complete offence to it.
What do you do with, you know, how do, you know, guest safety officers, you know, deal with that? As you've heard from Gary, and I know from personal experience, there is, you know, that the tale he has just told is not an isolated incident, because you are absolutely spot on that as soon as, oh, I might get into trouble, it might affect my career, it might do this, it might do that, I may be punished in some way, like you said, the lack of, you know, people don't want that personal responsibility. So how would you like to see that measured, or how within your Global SOS training do you start to get that message? So you pointed it out that you'll dump your mates, you know, basically you're going to drop your mates like a stone.
Yeah.
So how do we then start to actually alter the narrative so that they actually, when you finish that training, they actually genuinely want to stay and help and understand the value?
Well, do you know what? Actually, the young people get really hacked off with me because there is no answer. So if we're working with, depending what group that we're working with, at the end of it, when we're given the clues, the evidence, and you know, it's called the missing link. So it's just like that they're trying to find out what this missing link is. What's happened to this girl that's gone missing? I've got some actresses that come in and play the part, and it's done with really old video footage. You can hear, you know, it's not professionally done, and the kids love it because they think it's real, because it looks really realistic. And this young girl's there saying that what happened to her, and basically that she got sexually assaulted. She was actually pregnant. She got thrown out of the family home and put into care. She had to leave school because all her friends were taking the mick out of her because she got caught pregnant. She was sexually active. She doesn't know whether it was his baby or the man who raped her. Like I said, it's all based on a true story of someone we knew. And then afterwards, the young people are like, so what happened? I'm like, well, the love of a good family isn't going to help you. Your so-called friends didn't do anything for you. The police haven't got a clue on this occasion what happened to you. Don't let the missing link be you. And they're all like, what, miss, what happened? And you know, there is no explanation. And I'm like, if you do end up drinking excess alcohol, this can happen to you, which I'm sure, again, we'll all agree. If everyone was being truthful, putting your hands up, have you ever got so smashed you haven't remembered the end of the night? And yeah, I have. And the only time that I've ever realized personally where I've been is found out on my card the next day. Oh, we did go to the club and spend 45 quid on shots. Or so that's what alcohol does to you. And to show young people at an early age, that's what it does. And how them making the wrong decision can really affect someone else's life, I think is really important. It's that key education that is so needed, and not just on spiking issues, knife crime. is one of our, most popular workshops. And that is such a serious epidemic, but that's for another.
Yeah, I'll talk to you about knife crime afterwards. Afterwards, depending on where we are on this, because it's a personal topic of mine as well. So I just wanted to say, right, so there we are, and there's another piece within that little puzzle that you said, that yes, we teach people, we explain, and we learn. All those who've got drunk, been sick, and promised never ever to drink again, put their hands up. There goes Saint Gary, obviously not.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah,
I don't really drink anymore, so
anymore being the word.
Yeah,
I'm a big drinker, but just to take it off a side step, I remember coming out to Sergeant's Mess one day, and as I walked out, you can imagine, I saw, I can't remember how many guys it was, but they all had sparklers in their bum, and I looked at it, and I looked, and I thought to myself, this is really, at this point in my life, you don't need to be doing this weird stuff anymore. And I thought at that point, it's time to call it a day. And I called it a day, because I just thought, I don't want to be in these positions anymore. We're not going to go any further, but there we are. So so I don't really drink anymore.
Yeah, you know what? I've got to admit, Gary, like, any time anything has ever gone wrong, majorly wrong in my life, it's always been alcohol induced. It really has. I've had some of the best nights of my life when I've been out partying, but I've also had some of the worst times of my life. And it's all due to excess alcohol, which now, I mean, we all know everything should be in moderation, but I don't find it quite as entertaining anymore. But it did take me 50 years to get to that stage.
Well, that's what I mean. And I think, as you said, we've all been there at some point. And I mean, as young people, I mean, I've ended up in some weird and wonderful places, which I don't think we should discuss on air. But I'm sure we've all been in those situations. But yeah, let's not go there.
It's actually going there is something I would like to sort of we'll explore it. Take it on for me, because it's quite interesting, this whole bit that because we will go into the figures with the actual what I call and perceive my view of what spiking was. I think, because obviously that's really important, but it's taking Dawn's bit about personal responsibility, giving them that training, which is absolutely invaluable, and then realizing, as we have all done, that we learned the lesson. We knew that we were never going to do it again, but we did, and we continued to do it throughout our lives. And as you say, we do place ourselves at great personal risk when we do those things. And the great thing about life is, most of the time, it's a photo, it's a picture, or it's a bad night, or a great memory, or a bad memory, but it's a memory of a life, as we would probably say, well lived. But I want to sort of just move on. So from there, if we now look at and accept that adding alcohol to anybody's drink, whether for fun or intentionally, is spiking. End it. That is it. You are spiking your friend's drink, and the consequences of that will be borne by the person whose drink you spiked. Is that?
I think that's a very fair way to sum it up. And do you know what, Ian? When you were talking then, you've just reminded me of the young lady. She's been working with me for the last couple of years. And she went on to her friend's 18th birthday. They had a house party, and somebody grabbed his drink and they got the bottle of vodka and they were just about to put it in, and Lola went, "No, that's a form of drink spiking." Oh, I had a proper proud moment. I was like, it's absolutely fine if you offer it to people and they want to take it because they know their own limitations, or they should do. And also they know then what they put into their body. But you know, putting it in any other way is just wrong. And I was so proud of her when she came back and went, "Dawn, I educated all my mates at a house party." I was
Oh,
like,
that's
"Go on,
brilliant.
Lola."
That's brilliant. Are we going to get her a cape, an SOS cape? Yeah, well, that is actually a little S, you know, da, 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 flying through the sky. Yeah, stop it, Gary. Yeah, you know, I'm being serious here.
Yes, I can see.
Anyway,
I think the good point, sorry, Ian, it's just that whole thing about drink spiking goes unnoticed. As we said before, it goes unnoticed. And I think there's a high percentage of people who are responsible for that. And it does need to be educated. That is spiking. If you're going to slip something else in someone's drink, or an extra bit more vodka, that is drink spiking. And that's probably going on every weekend, every weekend in the social economy, somewhere along the line.
It is. And it's, you know, that's the most common form of spiking. And when, like, over the last nearly 2 decades now, I've been campaigning against this. I call it a cowardly crime because that's how it makes me feel. It's untoward. It's done by distraction. It's, you know, you're going and you're poisoning someone. It's like a cowardly, disgusting crime for me. So when you look at the alcohol side of it, then when you step it up a notch and you start looking at the, you know, your Rohypnol, your ketamine, GHB, the benzodiazepam family, all of those drugs that leave victims with no memory whatsoever. They become compliant. They've got only a really small window before those drugs take effect. And then they're going to be left with no memory what's happened to them. And, you know, that is the cowardly, disgusting part of spiking for me.
So I just want to, because you've for me, you've just transitioned to a slightly, you know, we've stepped it up that notch, and you've gone from, you know, we've gone from where we're all friends together. Yeah, unintentionally, you know, no malice intended. I'm just having a laugh. There is no ill intent actually intended in this spiking, you know, as you know, this addition of alcohol spiking, not saying it isn't, or putting it in any, or trying to diminish it, but we've gone from that 10. But for me, as I always saw it, as you know, spiking was something that was done when, you know, to obtain sexual favors, basically to get laid. You know,
Yeah.
whatever you think, that's it.
Have their wicked way with you.
Yeah, and that absolutely, you know, and you know, and those, and therefore, if you're pouring alcohol into, you know, the object of your desire drink, or, you know, then that is assault. It's malicious, it's poisoning, it's everything that you say, you know, whether it's alcohol and or any other substance. If you've got malicious intent within that, I mean, is am I capturing it?
You are capturing it. It's under the 1861 against the Persons Act.
Yeah, offences against the first 23
Offences
and
against the
24.
Persons Act, which, you know, just the clues in the title there, really, in it, 1861. It's like, you know, don't you think that law needs to be updated? The way that this crime is happening, and at the moment, currently, it's recorded under so many different laws. When I keep saying, you know, I'm campaigning and fighting to make this a specific criminal offence, I'm not just doing that just to be, oh, let's do something. There's a rhyme and reason behind this. I have contacted every police force throughout the whole of the United Kingdom to ask for their freedom of information data. Now we've had emails back, and my poor colleagues are like, "Oh, Dawn, they've said no." I'm like, "Go back again, go back again." Like, I can be quite persistent when I want an answer, luckily. And so we kept going back saying, why can we not obtain this data? It's going to cost too much money. Why is it going to cost too much money? Because there is no recordable specific offence code to record this crime. So I'm like, I'm sure you gentlemen will understand, but for anybody listening, I've just got to explain it in a way. But so if we all went out tonight and we got spiked, I got sexually assaulted. You two, they said, oh, they were just doing it as a prank. So unless we can prove that was with malicious intent under the Persons Act, if someone said, oh, it's only for a prank, I was just putting that in their drink. So then there would be no offence with you two, because I was sexually assaulted. Then mine would be under a sexual assault. So there's no way of me actually trying to, or our organisation trying to find out the extent of this crime, because it's recorded in so many different ways. And I actually managed at the Nighttime Industries Association at the summit where I met the lovely Ian Fox, and I actually managed to corner the lovely Ian Graham from the Met Police, the licensing officer, and I'm sure he wasn't overly happy with me because I just carried on and on. But I did have a really good conversation with him, and he said, look, Dawn, it's going to be so difficult for us to change the law, because what I didn't realize is when all the crimes are inputted into the computer system, that they don't cross-reference crimes. They don't double code crimes. And surely this must be the first place to start where you could cross-reference crimes, because if not, it's only the higher crime that seems to count. So it just didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. It just seemed to be something that, I mean, I'm not brilliant with computers. I'm very old-fashioned. I still use a paper diary. But with all of this technology in this day and age, there must surely be a way to double or cross-reference a code for a crime, or to update the law. Anyway, I've got to stop moaning for a minute.
That's all right. Gary?
Well, what we're really talking about, I mean, when you put it in simple terms, spiking is not a crime, is it? There's no actual law which states it's a crime. I can't remember which, was it called? The Persons
Offences
Act,
section
offence
20,
against the
sections 23 and 24.
That's right,
Yeah.
section 23 and 24. And that actually talks about poisoning people. I think it's 24 talks about poisoning people. And it's such a hard thing to prove, as Dawn says, for someone to investigate it. I mean, let's look at it at this point of view. Someone goes to a nightclub or a bar and they say they've been spiked. Then you've got to try and investigate that situation. So have the police got time for this as well? Because then they need to check all the CCTV equipment. Is there CCTV equipment across the bar to see if that's taken place? Is there any other CCTV equipment? Because that's the place where it's going to see, isn't it? Has that drink been spiked at that point? Then they need to interview all the bar staff. Then they're going to need to interview the security. It's such a wide thing to look at, to determine. So it's a very hard thing as a police officer, is for them to actually put the nail on the head and say that was a spiking incident without doing all that hard research and evidence finding on it, don't you think?
Well, do you know what? I feel sorry for the police in a way. I mean, you imagine if you go into the police station and say, I've been spiked. Where were you? I don't know. What happened to you? I don't know. If somebody's had sex with you, you can feel that, that. So, if you've been sexually assaulted and you go into the SARCs, they're amazing, the Sexual Assault Referral Centres. And if you go in there and report that, they can actually take samples from you, and you don't have to decide there and then, which is something I think should be shared with everybody. Is that if this crime has happened to you and you feel that somebody has had sex with you, and that's male and female, that's not, this crime doesn't just, that it has no prejudice. It doesn't just happen to women. So if you go in, they can take a sample from you, and then you can go home, maybe put your head together and decide if you want to carry on and make a criminal investigation. out of this. And I just think it's purely education that is needed, and it is urgently needed, especially across everyone who works in the nighttime economy. I've been listening to a few of your shows and who you've had on and speaking about the SIA and speaking, you know, and I love the social economy that we now call it instead of the night or the daytime economy. I think that's really clever. So, you know, and in this social economy, this training is urgently needed for the safeguarding of our nation on an epidemic that is sweeping not just across our country, it's across the globe. So, and it really needs to be hit head on.
I think the training though is not mainly for the staff though. I think it's going back to that individual as well. It's having
Of
that
course.
understanding and going back to what we said at the beginning. You know, bring that point up as Ian was quite shocked to realise that pouring alcohol in someone's glass is still extra alcohol. It's still spiking. Now, you know, the education does need to hit the individual people, and they're the people who need to understand it. Again, when you talk about the SARCs and things like that, we worked a lot in the LGBT plus community, and again, male rape there goes through the roof sometimes. I believe G's been banned, or was a couple of years ago now, it's been banned in every sauna in London due to the fact is that male rape and someone dying at least once a month. And part of our ongoing training for our staff, we were going into the Terence Hiddens Trust, and we've being taught about chemsex and bits and pieces. And one thing which surprised us a few years back is the amount of how many men have gone in there in the mornings and they've been raped in a sauna, and begin, you know, been spiked with G, and they had no idea how many times they had sex with. Some have claimed 20, 30 times. I mean, look at that. That's a ridiculous amount of people, and they had no clue of actually what went on. And this is male spike.
Sorry, Gary, can you just explain what G is? You're saying
GHB is a drug, which is it's actually, from what I remember, it's actually made in the body. You can actually buy it online. It's also used as an alloy wheel cleaner, and to do it properly, it gives you've got to measure out your weight and what have you, and put it together. And apparently you get a fantastic high. But what it generally does is makes you, what's the words I'm looking for here?
Loss of inhibition.
There we are, loss of inhibition, and it makes you completely sexually, aware of what you want. Promiscuous. There we are. Thank you, Dawn. And generally, I mean, I've worked in many of these things, and I've seen this many times. But we'll go back to that in a minute. But that's generally what G does, and also it can kill you. Just like that, and it leaves no trace in the body either.
Well, here's me now coming on. I actually don't think I'm gonna. Sorry, I can't go with for me. The offences against the Persons Act, Section 24, does cover it. I'm not saying that it is an ideal situation in any way, shape, or form, and that it's right. But the thing is, and the thing that concerns me is there are enough laws in this country to actually deal and cover with that. Don't ask me which ones exactly they are, because I can only go so far. There are, but there seems to be, and this is the bit that I would come to on this, is, let's say we go to all of this, we have all the investigation, and we should, to that level of detail. Then what tends to happen, as you see time and time again, appallingly, when a woman is actually, believes sufficiently, I mean, let through so many hoops, but then when she does get to court, there's only a 2%, I think it's a 2% conviction rate. And I struggle, and I say this because because I can't really go into it, but it very personally affects me. So I want to see something. What I will say, Dawn, is you're absolutely right. How come in today's modern world, we can get mobile phone bills that dictate, tell you to the last second where you were, what you were doing, you know, how long your conversation was, where that conversation was, where it went to, that you can't have a code and a mechanism for adding additional subcategories within that. And as I actually, you know, my degree, sorry Gary, I've got a degree, you know, is actually is a Bachelor of Science in Computing, then yeah,
I could
I
see
know
that
it's
when you were on
possible.
with Michael Kill, all your great skills that you had with your technology.
Oh yeah, ho ho ho, yeah.
Sorry.
What me that was, doesn't think. I can't believe it. Oh well, but we keep it real.
You do. And
We,
that's why I was really excited to come on, funny enough, because that's the only thing I've got. There's no grey area with me. It's black or white, and that's just the way I love it in life.
no, so you know, you and Gary obviously agree. I think it could be done, but in a different way. I don't know if I think the technological route is saying that's my view, but the overall thing that I totally agree is it's wrong, diddly on dong dong, and you know, we need to make sure that these crimes are properly recorded and can be actioned effectively and efficiently by the legal system. And I'll shut up now because I've had my rant.
I'm itching to go. Am I all right to go next, Gary?
Yeah, go.
Thank you. Right. Okay. Let me give you all the reasons why what you've just said is like totally not correct for me, Ian Fox. So at the moment, these laws, you know, these crimes are being done, as we know, poisoning with obnoxious substance, offence against the Persons Act. And until we make this a recognised crime within its own right, nobody is going to be adequately trained. The key emergency service are not going to be resourced correctly. Nobody is going to know how to deal with it. They're not going to have the correct policies in place, procedures in place, risk assessment, an immediate call to action. And this is all the key bits that I want to slot into place to safeguard potential victims against this crime. And, you know, that goes for, we don't know the typical, when I go and meet with different key service providers, and, you know, I've got people going around now that have never spoken about drink spiking. I've been banging on their doors for years, trying to get drink spiking put into their agenda to make it part of their accreditation. And now they're going around saying, oh, yeah, we've got a little tiny tick box for drink spiking. That proper riles me up.
Yes,
it really does. Yeah, I'm like, oh, suddenly every man, cat, dog, and his uncle's cousins worried about spiking now because it got to be a media sensation last year with the needle spiking. When actually, with our training course, I've got 20 years of experience of speaking to victims, and I've intertwined every little bit of evidence that I can into our training to show the extent of spiking, what people look like, what they act like, how it can affect the business, how that you can protect your staff as well. Because if somebody has been spiked and you find them unconscious in a toilet in your nightclub at 5 o'clock in the morning, and the first person they see are you when you're locking up and they've been raped, what are they going to think? You know, you've also got to safeguard your own personal staff and yourself to make sure that you're adhering to all of this step-by-step guide.
Right. And so just to come back and just to say, well said. And I don't mean that in a thing. It is absolutely right. I totally agree that more needs to be done. And hopefully when we talk afterwards, we may have we may be able to do something that can make that work. certainly provide an opportunity to get the message out there in a better way. But the Health and Safety Guidance, Health and Safety Act, and managing health and safety at work regulations make it a requirement, as you'll know, that venues, anybody in charge has got to make sure that their staff are properly trained in order to do so. Now, what's happening, of course, people do a little online course, as you say, they tick a little box and they go, and that's me done for drink spiking for the next 10 years. Yeah, there's no continuous training program, refresher program, because everything, and this is something I think I said to you when we met, is who pays for it? Currently, the people who have to pay for it, the guest safety officers, as part of their SIA training. Everything that's added in to the SIA training adds more time and takes them and makes it, it's just an additional cost for an SIA person to pay, and they're only on £10–12 an hour.
I know. And
that to look after the nighttime economy. Gary,
Yeah.
what do you think?
I just want to take this back to before we go down the training path, because you know my views on the training path. It's never enough, But I want to go back to the point where Dawn was saying, when people come into a nightclub or they claim to be spiked or they've said spiked, as you said during the last year or so, it became a buzzword. Everyone was being spiked. Yeah. We put policies and procedures in place, and what the problem is this will come back onto the training, is because it became a buzzword. I've been spiked. As soon as that word spike comes into play, we got policy procedures, and we got to try and identify, has that really been a spiking? Whether it's been alcohol spiking, has it been a drug spiking, or whether someone has just literally gone and got completely drunk and what have you. So the policies in the venues I've put up, it becomes a nightmare because the manager needs to be involved. We've now got to consider police situations. We've got to look after the person straight away. Do we need to get them to hospital? What are their symptoms? It becomes a big ball game for us on this thing. So trying to establish that word spike, have they been spiked? It literally becomes a nightmare, because at that point once that policy is in, we're going to end up calling the police if they have been spiked. And in one case, we did actually catch someone who did do spiking, and we actually held them. We got the police and they got taken away. But the whole infrastructure of that is hard work, because I had it a few weeks ago. Young lady, absolutely rat-arsed. Yeah, the cleaner, for no apparent reason, she's been spiked. That was the cleaner. Now the cleaner's turned around and said she's been spiked. Didn't say it subtly or anything like that. How the cleaner knows she got spiked, I do not know. But she starts cleaning. So the girlfriend went, she's obviously been spiked. And now I've got a cascading situation of someone who is intoxicated, who hasn't been spiked, but now because of one person's screamed out they've been spiked, we've now got a whole situation rolling for unnecessary terms.
Mass hysteria.
Yeah, hysteria comes to play, and they say the friend job, she's definitely been spiked. And then, well, hang on, has she been spiked? Have you spiked her? We're now going down these paths because now we've got our medics now doing tests on her. Now we're trying to understand, we're doing all our stats, doing everything to check on. Does she need to go to hospital, or is it just a case of she's over intoxicated? It turns out the young lady was over intoxicated, and her friends went, she's over intoxicated. I had to have words with the cleaners and went, you need to shut your mouth, because you could have caused such a big thing here.
Yeah.
And it cascades down the line. And I've got the manager standing there going, he's biting his fingernails going, oh my God, we've had a spiking here. We've got to have the police here. And he starts panicking about licensing. Whatever. And I'm going, just wait. We've got people in play.
That's the next thing, Gary, is that people don't want to admit that it's going on in their venues. And I have so many people coming to me saying, this happened here. I'm not here to name and shame venues. This is not my bag whatsoever. I got people coming up with an app, coming up with this, coming up with that. Let's do this. People trying to get me to sell their testing kits that are not fit for purpose. and could put victims into potentially a lot more danger than what they already were.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just like, hold on a minute. Let's go back to basics and get, so for this training, you know, if somebody comes up to you and says, I think I've had my drink spiked, then they probably haven't, because they probably wouldn't even be able to string that sentence together.
That's right.
So, you know, that's the start of it. So let's try and ascertain from what is people who are just panicking, especially because of the media last year, and what's actually happening on the street. Now, if I didn't have the resilience of a bloody rhino, and I wasn't here to try and make a difference and leave a legacy in life, I would have given up this fight 15, 16 years ago, to be honest with you. But the difference between me and everyone else out there that seems to want to be helping on this subject is that I have spoken to hundreds of victims over the years, and I know that a friend of mine who's a lesbian got gang raped in my home city in Exeter by a group of men. I know that a straight male got raped many years ago by another male, and all his friends took the piss out of him and said, oh, you love it up the jacksie, don't you? He's now a heroin addict. I know all of these stories, and I've had men and women break down, cry their little eyes out in my arms when I've gone round handing out these stop tops, trying to warn people that spiking's been going on. And, you know, this is for them, to be honest with you. It's for all those people. We've got no justice for them whatsoever. And now, just to make a crime so that it has to be adhered to, doesn't seem like a big ask to me. And when we get this crime put into its own, so it's recognised as a crime in its own right, then we need that key training to be put in place. We know that the key emergency services. I bumped into a few ambulance staff the other day, and I said to them, would you know what someone looks like or acts like if they've been spiked? No. Would you like my training? We'd love your training. So, you know, we've got key emergency frontline staff that need, and let's not forget, sorry, I'm on a rant now. Let's not forget that fourth emergency service that I call, the wonderful people that are out there on the streets every weekend, the street pastors. The street pastors, they are the ones that are out there with the security. Oh, sorry, the guest, what is it you call them now?
Guest safety officers.
The guest safety officers, that they are your frontline emergency crew. You know, you've got the bar staff. They could be the difference between somebody getting home safely or potentially gang raped. These are people that are in really serious jobs where lots of partying's going on, lots of alcohol's being used. So why the hell isn't the government spending some sort of money on training them so they're adequately trained to know the difference between someone who's had a skinful and someone who's been poisoned by a dangerous date rape drug? That should be the first thing. And while I'm on my quick rant,
okay, go for
sorry.
It's all, no, honest. I want to see the passion.
Just Ian. Get off, Ian.
Right. While I'm on my quick rant of this, as a secret squirrel, I applied for my publican's license 3 or 4 years ago. So I went and sat the exam. Now I can run my own pub. I can run a nightclub. I can get a TENS license, put on a small festival. Do you know what? Not one question when I got my publican's license does it talk about drink spiking. Does it talk about any spiking? How to safeguard? So surely that should be your number one education, is that for people who are going to become a publican, they should have that within their training. That should be mandatory in my eyes. Anybody who works behind the bar, I've worked in pubs all my life. And so I've gone in, you know, in this country, when I lived in Australia, wherever I've been around the world, I've always gone and worked in a bar. And to work behind a bar, you know, you don't need any qualification whatsoever. Just a smile, be able to pour a pint, and, you know, that's it, isn't it, really? That's not good enough. People who work behind the bar, when I was there, if somebody came in and bought someone a drink, like the last time I worked in a bar, a girl came in with a guy. He said he'd have a vodka and Coke. I poured the vodka and Coke, and then she went, "I'll stick another double in that." But sorry, it wasn't to me. I was behind the bar, and there was a young lad that was working there, and he went, "Oh," and he took the vodka and he stuck another double in it and he put it back. So when the guy come out the toilet, instead of me challenging him in front of someone, which would have been so unprofessional, I would never do that. And also, I just said to him, "God, isn't she kind? She just stuck a double in that for you." He's now informed. The guy wasn't embarrassed because I told him afterwards, "Look, next time don't ever do that." But you know, it's just a quick way of being able to tell people what's going on. And just by having people aware that work behind the bar, if we walk in and suddenly, you know, I'm totally sober, so are you, Gary, and then suddenly I've got my arm around you and I'm leading you out the pub, you know, and you've only been in there for half an hour, surely people should be questioning that. Why did that man come in totally sober? Why is he absolutely off his head when he's had one drink and that girl's leading him out? I could have spiked you. I could be taking you out. I could be getting recognition on your phone with face recognition. I could empty your bank account. This is all the things that we need to be aware of. And for me, people who work behind a bar or in a nightclub situation should be adequately trained to be able to spot all these signs.
No, I totally and utterly agree with you, and this is one of the things that you know I've. It's what started, you know, got me back. I'd left security. I'd gone to work in domiciliary care and got had my own company for a little while, and then after the Manchester Arena inquiry, which for me was a show trial in terms of the security, I realised that legislation was being weaponised. I realised that lots and lots of changes were going to be forced upon the nighttime events, social economy, as we call it, and that you couldn't wait. Can't wait for legislation. Nobody's going to care because it's a known. And I think this is one of the areas where where you certainly can push, because I was a landlord going to turn around and say, "Oh, I didn't know about drink spiking. I didn't realise." It's not going to wash. It's none. You can't use it. And although within that context, the legislation, plenty of legislation exists that will cause a landlord, a brewery chain, etc., to be forced to close if they haven't complied. So there's the drive, and I agree with you. If we can get within the terms of, if we could get a law that could properly codify sexual assault, and its antecedents, as it were. Is it antecedents? I don't know, but I think it's anti-post. I think it's antecedent. The lead up to it. That would be great thing. But in the meantime, I think that the thing that you're doing with SOS Global is amazing. That is amazing. Because it's out there. And I feel it. I mean, I don't know, Gary. You're drawing me in now. You're getting me all, I'll be there with me placard. I'll be drawing. What about you, Gary?
Can I just go back to something that Gary said a minute ago?
Yeah, of course.
When we were talking about security and people trying to find out, what's happened to someone and the safeguarding of people and stuff like that, if this training was put into place, then if someone worked in a nightclub and someone said, "Oh, they've had their drink spiked," boom, let's get that drink. Let's cover it. Let's keep it as evidence. Let's find out where that person was. Let's liaise so that the police don't have to come in and trawl through hours and hours of CCTV. By working collaboratively and working together, we could save so much time, let alone this grey area of the NHS and collecting samples. That has got to be on this agenda today. That is something that probably riles me up even more than everything that we've talked about so far.
Now, I'm glad you brought it up, because we do that. We try and do that. But it's amazing. Suddenly the drink goes missing, or no one knows where that drink is. And then that becomes one of the issues. The training wise is, the Ask Angela and Wave training is pretty good. It's not brilliant. It's pretty good. It's been around. I don't know how long it's been around now. I mean, I've been teaching it, I don't know, a good few years now. I don't know, maybe, oh God, I'd have to check, but it's been around a long time. But there needs to be more training, and it needs to be consistent, and that's the main thing. And in the security industry now, we have a high turnover of staff. I mean, every week, every company is 20 to 30% short of officers, even though the SIA said there's 400,000 officers out there. There isn't. There's a very shortage of staff. So this training does need to be consistent. And I like the idea of training. I want to go back to your training because it sounds very interesting. But as you say, the whole thing about bar staff, again, they do need to be trained. They continuously need to be trained. But again, they have a high turnover of staff as well. And that training needs to be consistent. But this is where things fall apart. For things to be professional, it has to be continuously ongoing. But the problem is the money side. People cannot afford to keep paying for the money. Ask Angela Wave is free. I do it free for my clients. But to have you guys come in and do your training, that's going to cost money, isn't it? You're not doing it for free. So again, but you might have say 20, 30 staff, depending on the venue, or even 10 staff for a venue. 2 weeks later, half those staff are gone.
Yeah.
And the trouble is, you've got a fresh lot of people in, and then they're going, well, at least half the staff have got it, but it's the ones that don't have it become the problem. And again, i.e. like the SAA staff, their idea of training, when you tell them you need to be trained, they go, well, we're already SAA trained. We're up to SAA standard. Well, everyone knows SAA standard is minimum standard. It's not gold standard. It's not platinum standard. It is, it's basic standard.
Basics, isn't it? That you need to minimum.
And one of the things I've been trying to do with my teams over the years is we're always striving to try and find that extra, always striving to try and do that little bit more. As you said, ambulance workers, NHS staff, they don't understand and recognise when people are spiked and some of the situations. Some of the nurses do, because most of them take bloody drugs. Sorry, I was rerunning that. Not most of them, some of them do, and doctors do, and my doctor's friends watching this, sorry, I haven't named you, but they do understand. But it is out there where ambulance staff don't recognise this, and they don't understand how to treat certain stuff. I mean, this is again why we went along and done sex chem training and understanding this. And there's a ways to deal with stuff. It's very important. So going back to that training, it is so important, but it always falls back on that major thing: money and high staff turnovers, especially in social economy.
And there's ways around that, Gary. I've been thinking about. Obviously, I've been thinking about this and campaigning for it. Like I said, for nearly 2 decades, I've thought of every eventuality. I've worked behind a bar. I know what it's like. I've designed 2 separate courses. I've got a 20-minute online course that bar staff can do as soon as they walk in the door, before they start their shift. Get on and do that 20-minute course. So you're a little bit au fait to what to do and how to do it. The venue management, the staff, the security guards, the street pastors, emergency services, they need to come on a couple-hour course. They need to find out the ins and outs. We need to put scenarios to them so they know exactly the best practice, and they've got an immediate call to action to be able to safeguard potential victims and to secure the evidence. We need convictions. What's it like, 0.2% or something ridiculous of convictions? And last year, the National Police Chief Council, Maggie Blythe, who's doing a brilliant job, but I don't want to get tailored up with this violence against women and girls. It is part of violence against women and girls, but it's not all violence against women and girls. And Gary, when you talked about the male rape earlier, we've got the Sanaga case up in Manchester. He raped over 200 men. We've got, as a straight male, if you went out and you got drunk and you ended up getting spiked and poisoned and anally raped, are you going to tell anyone? I've had men break down in my arms, made me promise and swear not to tell their wife, not to tell their children. So would you actually tell anyone?
Me?
Yeah,
I would.
Oh, no, I'll tell you now.
So you would, I would. I would, because that's trauma which you don't need to keep up inside you. And you need to get out. You need to get out in the open. You need to start talking to people, because for one, you've been abused. It's non-consensual. You've been raped, and frankly, for me to hold that inside myself for that amount of time, I'll eventually do something stupid. So no, I'd get out in the open. You can keep it all bunged up all you want, Ian. Not being rude there. Take it the wrong way, but
no, it's got no. I fully understand though. When I used to train, the SIA training and all the other bits and pieces, one of my many talents is the thing that one of the scenarios I always used to say was that, about we used to talk about spiking, strangely enough. It was about how do you, I suppose one of the things, how do you deal with an incident? You're told that somebody's brought five tablets into the venue. Yeah, you've found somebody with one on them. Yeah, but you've got, where are the other four? How do you find out? And then the scenario. So how would you testify? Would you testify if you were raped? And obviously the answer is no. Was always no.
No.
It was never. You're the only one, Gary, I've ever had who turned round and said yes. I've heard who said they would say it. Most blokes won't, because they know that as soon as they get in court, the barrister, lovely people that they are, is going to turn round and say, you were gagging for it, Gary. And then they're going to paint you up as though you were drunk, that you actually wanted it. And bear in mind, some of them they can represent themselves. So you could find yourself facing your rapist, and then having to, basically be forced to go through the trauma and other things. Most people won't, women won't go through it, and men certainly won't, because as Dawn says, when they then go out in the wider world, back in front of the phone, what blokes are like. They're going to take the mick. It's what happens.
Of course, yeah. But that is the way we've educated the world. We're going down a different path now on that thing. But it is, that's how we've been educated from day one in the schools, and bits and pieces don't say that. But, if we re-educate people, and if we could get spiking classed as a proper crime, it will deter a lot of this stuff straight away. We won't be in these situations. So,
how big and I know you want to talk about the NHS, so but I need to keep calm for a couple of minutes, because you say exactly. So education, at what level, at what age do we need to start educating people, children? Is it do we need to start educating children at a much earlier age, not about spiking per se, but wrapped in different packages, where your friend gives you a sweet, your friend's got some sweets over there. Do you eat all of these, or do you do it? I don't know. You're the expert at that. But it actually starts a progression, so that by the time you arrive when you're going out, you're actually aware that you shouldn't be doing these kind of things anyway.
We'll put it at that point, Ian. You talk about educating people. We educate everybody at a young age for drinking is okay.
Oh, it's fine, but Dawn.
No, hang on. But before we go, I'm just saying, we educate everyone at a young age that drinking's okay. And going right back to the beginning of pouring that extra bit of alcohol in the cup, which is spiking. But we've all done it. We've all done that. But this is where education goes. It goes back to people looking after themselves, parenting. It's that whole point. If we need to look at how we go out, it's only until people like Dawn goes out there, she's stood up and started saying this, that people start picking up and noticing. And like today, you went, oh yeah, that is spiking, about putting extra alcohol. And we need to educate from a young stage that alcohol you do that, that it's still spiking. You know, from the parents, from school days, from friends. I'll let Dawn chat. Sorry, Dawn.
No, no, that's absolutely fine. I mean, in my day, we called it a Mickey Finn.
That's
And
right.
when I say it to youngsters these days, they're like, "Oh, what?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, going to Mickey Finner," or, you know. And it used to be that you'd put extra alcohol into someone's drink, so you try and have your wicked way with them. You know, that was just the oldest trick in the book, isn't it? And that's happened, you know, forever. And it's getting that key education out there that. So I just want to tell a couple little stories about, first of all, when I worked behind the bar in a nice pub in Exeter, in my home city. And then I worked behind the bar in the dodgy pub in my city. So I worked one day in the nice bar, one day in the dodgy bar. And so in the nice bar, a lady comes in. It was her granddad's wake, and it was a beautiful day. So they went out into the garden and they were drinking. And like later on, this girl was violently sick everywhere. She was in a hell of a state, and she'd actually had a bit of a head injury. So it was dangerous for her to be drinking that much. Her uncle, who'd been coming in and buying her double gin and tonics all day. So she thought she'd had 6 gin and tonics, which was her limit. She'd actually had 12 gin and tonics. She was violently ill, and there is a case of a person who loves you spiking somebody else. So, and they actually went up to the landlord's flat because they knew them, and she was violently sick in their flat. It was all embarrassing, and then it turns out why this happened. So we got to the bottom of it. Now, going a few days later, going into my little dodgy pub in Exeter, working behind the bar there, when anybody came in, if anything happened and someone went, "Oh, get them a double," it wasn't me that would tell the person, it would be them. "Oh, I put a double in that for you, mate." It's like there seems to be a bit of an honor amongst thieves. And it was like they seemed to be the straighter people who weren't going to be doing anything untoward to you. And it's funny how people in my city go, "Oh, I wouldn't drink in that bar, I wouldn't go in there." And that's some of your straightest real life people that wouldn't do you a bad turn in a million years. Which is bizarre, isn't it? How people look at people and how they judge people from where they drink, what they do. And yeah, spiking, there is no prejudice. I've had reports of people getting spiked at a funeral recently. I had a friend of mine's dad who got spiked at a wedding, and the sister-in-law, he was 89 years old. They put so much cannabis in this cupcake. He ate one of the cakes and was violently sick. His sister-in-law, who's like 63 years old, I think 63, 64, she ate the cake, passed out in the wedding reception. They thought she died. She went grey in pallor. She got taken to the hospital in Torbay, and was hospitalized for 24 or 48 hours in a hell of a mess. And it wasn't until a young child went up to try and take one of those cakes, a little toddler, that the person who bought the cakes went no. And that's how they found out who it was. A guest at the wedding had come and put those cakes down.
You know, all of those cases obviously are illuminating in their own way. But I just want to try and get back to the thing about educating from primary, from with SOS Global. Are you in that? Is that in your space, in your remit? You know,
it is in our remit.
And what do you do?
With primary education, we don't hit upon, we talk about alcohol awareness and how putting extra alcohol or any alcohol into a non-alcoholic drink is like a form of spiking, but it's mainly in secondary education. We feel that's the time when young people are going to start going to house parties, you know, and if the teacher has to come in the room, I try for them not to come in the room, but if they do, then I say, "Oh, sir, could you just look out the window a minute? Who here drinks alcohol? Hands up. Who here has tried cannabis? Who here," you know, so we get the real feel. And I always make a disclosure to the young people that everything that we talk about will be kept in confidence unless it's so serious that we have to disclose by law. So We make sure that the young people know they're in a safe space. They can talk about anything. And we get some of the best learnings from that. And I think I've taught nearly 15,000 young people now across the UK, mainly in the Southwest. And it's like over 90% of the teenagers have come back and said they'd be more truthful to SOS Global trainers than their mainstream teachers at school, because we're not going to meet their parents.
Yeah.
We're not going to get too close. And so that for us is where the key training comes in, because then if the students are going to be truthful with you, we do quantitative and qualitative. We give everybody a questionnaire, and we say, don't write your names on it. You know, we don't want to know who you are. All we want to know is the correct data. Who's carrying a knife? Who would carry a knife? Who knows someone who carries a knife? Who drinks alcohol? Who's ever tried drugs? You know, who smoked cannabis? What do you know about the sex offenders register? All those key questions that you need the answers from young people. And so education for us starts at secondary.
Yeah, I think that's yeah. Again, it was, I can't remember if I mentioned Karen Wybro's name, whether I talked about her on actually within the show or before. But you know, as I said, the piece, the thread that I was having with her on LinkedIn is you know, education is just so important if we're going to tackle all of these issues. Certainly, I think we definitely mentioned this when we spoke to Sarah Walker, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Absolutely.
Yeah. Education at the earliest possible opportunity, you know, to put in place such an intervention is critical. It's about growing up with that mindset for misogyny and all the other bits and pieces that go along, you know, toxic masculinity, etc., dealing with all of it. It needs to start at the beginning of the process. Unfortunately, you know, Dawn, isn't it? The time GSO, Gary and his crew and people like yourself arrive at the party, as it were, as you see, it's too late. So what would you like?
Education is key. We all know that education is key, and trying to, you know, put those values and instill the right thing to do into young people in a friendly but challenging environment is brilliant. Because now, you know, just from my young 16-year-old young lady who's been working with me for a couple of years, just, you know, at that 18th birthday party, no, that's a form of spiking. And she educated 2 or 3 people there, and which is fantastic, you know. But when we were going back to the Mickey Finn and dicing people's drinks, and, you know, it's been going on forever, but it's just now with GBH, GBL, all these dreadful drugs that are out there. I mean, and prescription drugs as well. When people keep talking about these testing kits, and I'm like, you've got such a huge variety of pharmaceutical drugs that can be used in spiking incidents. And you can imagine now, if you've got a recreational drug user who's ringing up his dealer on a Friday night and he's like, right, I'll have a gram of coke, I'll have a couple of ecstasy tablets, oh, and stick me in a bit of Rahypnol. They're going to be like, what? You know, because of this spiking. So people are probably not using Rahypnol now. They're probably not too scared to ask for it in case they're, you know, it could be used for other ways, we know. But that is your typical known date rape drug now. So I doubt people are going to be asking for that. They're going to be finding different ways, different means, and different drugs that can be used that are on the market. Which leads me onto a story the other day of a lady saying to me, I was in a pub and I overheard her say to a friend, oh yeah, I can't sleep. And she said, oh, would you want me to bring you in some temazepam? My granddad still gets 100 a month and he doesn't use them anymore. And I was like, oh my word. So this is, you know, people giving pharmaceutical drugs to other people. What are they doing with those drugs? That's another whole story.
Dealing is what they're doing. They're actually dealing. But
Yeah.
you wanted to talk about you know, because you were getting so excited, and about talking about the NHS and thing and thing. So I'd love to hear about that.
Okay. So when we get a spiking incident, I can talk about a nurse who got spiked in Exeter a couple of years ago. And I went round to her house because she ordered some stop tops, you know, the little covers that we've made. So I went, if anybody ever orders them in Exeter, I always go and hand deliver them because I just want to, you know, just to be nice and just to tell them what I'm doing and stuff. So I went to this house and the mum opened the door and she told me that her daughter, who was a nurse, got spiked. Luckily, they went into Brewdog. It wasn't where they got spiked. They went for pre-drinks first, but they ended up in Brewdog, and they were amazing. They've taken on our training, which is brilliant. And so when she's gone into the establishment, she started being violently sick because that's what happens with these drugs. You either wet yourself or you're violently sick because the poison wants to get out of your system quickly. So they took her, they closed off the bathroom, they closed off a part of the restaurant. One of the security officers went with her and her sister, I believe it was, to the hospital. Now, they tried to phone the police. They couldn't get hold of the 101 number. They weren't sure if they should be ringing 999. But I can't remember if they did end up calling 999. But basically, the police couldn't attend. So this nurse got taken to hospital. She was going in and out of consciousness. They've gone in and really they only do observations, I believe, for your anyway, it might come back to me. They do a certain observation. I can't remember what it's called right now. To make sure that you're okay. So the sister asked if they could take a sample so that they could find out what drug she'd been poisoned with. And unless the police instructs the hospital, no sample will be taken. So we are setting everybody up for a fail. There surely must be something that with NHS walk-in centres, we've got rape crisis groups, we've got SARC, we've got all of these key services that are out there, and you're telling me that it has to be one policeman that says, yes, you can take that sample. That just seems to me to be absolutely ridiculous. And we are failing victims time and time again because nobody is stepping in and doing an intervention or a pathway for us to be able to get these key samples so that we can start getting convictions. That's my little moan about this.
No, but you're right, and it's it's a perfect example of failure of leadership and the establishment, the human need for the establishment of power bases, silos, so that, oh yes, I'm in charge of this. They need to be in control to be able to tell people that they have power over something. Doesn't matter really what, but they've got power over something. It's terrible. Gary, what do you think?
I'm not too sure about that regarding samples. I'm just trying to think of a situation which we had recently, whereas I believe the hospital did take a sample, but I'm trying to remember whether it was the police requested it or whether they got it done themselves. And literally, I was just trying to find my phone, flick through my phone to see if I could actually find the information, because this is going back a few months ago, and the young person was spiked. It was confirmed that they had no body, but I'm not sure whether the police were involved in it or not, or whether it's just a hospital or the person themselves got it done. So I'm not too sure on that one. So, I mean, if that's the case down the southwest where police have to be involved, I'm not sure. Was this the southwest? You said you did.
It was the southwest, but I've heard this on a national level. This is not just southwest.
Yeah, I think it was a private thing. So I was just trying to flick through it on my phone. I was just trying to find the information. But I think they might have done it privately because they came back and told us what was in it. But if that's the case, it's a very poor show, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, what that really is telling you is about money, isn't it? Again,
Of course.
It costs money to investigate that, tests to go off, and unless someone actually demands it, or someone in the legal side demands it, then they're not going to do it, which is a shame, really, because again, until you get evidence, there's not a lot you can do about it. And again, it pushes spiking. What was percentage again? 0 point something.
Yeah, 0.275 or.
And the big wigs look at that figure and go 0.275. Do we really need a little? Well, it's only 0.275. No, we don't. But as you said, the research, they don't cross-reference the research. It doesn't put together. So your 0.275 is never going to get higher unless they start cross.
Until it's recognised, as a crime in its own right, until we can start recording the samples, until the training starts cascading across the whole of the UK on how to deal with this crime, how to keep the samples, how to keep the evidence. It's all these, they're really small things to change that can make a multitude of difference, which is what is really annoying, to be honest. And I just want to talk about something good for a change. So I'm not moaning. I feel like a right moaning old cow.
Honestly, Dawn, you're not, because the subject that you speak about, the subject that you support, promote, is so important. I've got 2 sisters, I've got 4 nieces, etc. These, I would hate it. I would have hated it if anything could have happened to my sisters. I would have hated it if anything happened to my nieces, etc., to my wife, or wives. I've been married 3 times. At the end of the day, wife number 3 is doing well.
Mrs. Fox the Third.
Mrs. Fox the Third is, she's doing very well. And I am desperately and in love and incredibly grateful for her presence.
Nice.
So,
that's lovely to hear.
It is true. I am very grateful. This is not the time, Gary. But yes. But anyway, so the subject is too important for you to speak. So what's it about? I am going to have to say we're now at an hour and a quarter. You have again been too interesting a guest for your own good. So we'll probably have to talk some more at another time. As well, if that's okay with you.
That would be amazing.
But for now, first of all, before we get to that bit, tell us the last.
The good news.
The good news. Then.
So, as you know, I was called as the expert witness in the Home Affairs Committee. Leading on from there, Richard Graham, the MP for Gloucester, actually put a Westminster Hall debate together. So I attended and I contacted every MP across the whole of the UK to tell them what I was doing and why I was doing it, so that we could get, some really good people to turn up on the day, which it was. And I was told by Richard Graham's office, it was quite amazing by how many people were actually there at this Westminster Hall debate. And we have now got 5 cross-political parties who are all agreeing with my petition to try and get spiking to stop being an invisible crime and to make it a recognised crime. So these 5 cross parties also included the former Home Secretary, Priti Patel. It included the former Safeguarding Minister, Rachel McLean. Now, how much more evidence do we need to show the government that this is something that needs to be changed? I'm not politically minded whatsoever. It just doesn't, I don't understand it. It doesn't entertain my little brain. But what I do know is that you need these sorts of people behind you. And if we've got 5 cross-political parties, if we've got the backing of the National Police Chief Council, the lovely Jason Harwin, who's now retired, those sorts of people, the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioners, they agree that they think it should be a recognised crime. If we have all these people, what else can I do here to try to get change made?
Well, Gary, come on. There, you heard that. Tell her.
Vote for me. Vote for me.
Vote for you.
Gary for Prime Minister. There you go. I'll change it for you.
Oh, thank you. Well, do you know what? At the Nighttime Industries Association, obviously as well, we spoke to Michael Keel, Sasha Lord. They're all on board as well, which is absolutely amazing. And I just think maybe it's the general public that need to start getting behind it. So, yeah, we've got a petition out there. If anybody's interested in signing it and sharing it, it would be very much appreciated.
Ping it across, Dawn, and we'll get it out. I'll send it out to my network of people, and we'll see if we can get some more people on to sign it. I mean, everything helps on those points.
Brilliant, thank you.
You see, the important thing is it's not about whether anybody agrees or disagrees with you, your point of view. It really isn't. What's important is the fact that you are passionate, articulate, you have the facts there, and you've given people the opportunity to sit there and make an informed decision, which is certainly what isn't happening to those people that wind up having their drinks spiked in whichever way. They don't get to make that decision, do they? And I think, that's important. I totally and utterly support the idea and pushing forward education and using what we've got. So it's not about, I don't support the idea of a drink spiking law per se in and of itself, but I think if you're going to spend your time, because I am quite political and do understand how some of these things work, is that yes, what you've done is fantastic, but they're all hot air. Most of them are. They'll all stand there and have the photo taken, and you and I will talk about this hopefully after. But the bottom line is, what you're doing is fantastic because you're making it happen. If that makes sense, you're driving this. You are making and influencing people. You are an inspiration to me. Yeah, in that we're trying to change the way people view guest safety officers and see them as the professionals that are there, the people that are the first responders, your real first responders.
Yeah.
On the street, on any given night, or in any given social setting, they're going to be the ones that do it. And we're trying to change the perception of that. If we could do half of what you've done in the time that you've done it and get the recognition, admiration that you've achieved, I for one will be chuffed to bits and feel as though we've done something. So don't beat yourself up, don't rant. There's no need, because you're right. The facts speak for themselves. Gary?
I think you said it all in a nutshell there, Ian. I mean, it's very true. You've done it. And the whole point of this guest safety officer idea is to bring people like yourself on and to educate and re-educate the first responders on the ground. And as you said, even the ambulance staff don't know what to do. Well, if the ambulance staff don't know what to do, what are some of the guest safety officers, what are they doing? Yeah. They don't need to do. I'm really interested in your training, and I'd like to speak more about that to you, and perhaps get a team over to you, or perhaps you come to us. I mean, you're not far away from me anyway. I think you're over the hill, over that way, far away from where I live. So, okay. If we ever have a chat about that, that'd be great. Definitely. That would be very interesting. I'd like to know more about that, and if I could bring that onto my teams and help them get better, and also my clients as well, because I've got quite a few clients out there who I consult for, and they need this extra training. They absolutely do need this, and I think it's very important. And the thing that actually got me today is just, I keep going back to it with Ian being shocked at the fact he's putting that extra drink in.
Yeah,
is spiking. Now, I knew about it, and I wasn't shocked by it, and I thought, yeah, you're damn right. That's so true. I've been doing it for years. But the fact is, it's happening all the time, and that needs to be educated through to the bar staff. That needs to be, it has to be there to the welfare team and the bar staff. So, yeah, if we can have a chat about that, it'd be brilliant. Or you send a link over, or we can actually have a phone. I think I've got your number, haven't I? I think we've spoken on the phone, have we? Have we spoken on the phone? Not too sure.
You talking to me or to Ian?
No, you. I'm talking to you, not talking to Ian.
Sorry.
What do you talk to me?
I see
Doesn't
how
have-
to Ian all the
He doesn't
time.
have my phone number.
He's
Yeah,
he's got your number, mate.
Yeah, I've got that number. But you can't take me out for a drink because my phone won't come with me.
Yes, if not, we can share numbers as well. And it's just, do you know what? Yesterday, a couple of weeks ago, I just wanted to finish on something really nice, because I feel like I've been a bit like full on. And yesterday, I had a lady who we taught from the Deaf Academy, which is based in Exmouth, not too far away from Exeter. And she came in for a little interview yesterday to become an ambassador. So she's now going to be an ambassador for the deaf community. And we always try and be inclusive. And one of my board members is an interpreter, Sarah. I think you met her, Ian, at the Economy Summit. And do you know what? This little girl came in, and when they're doing sign language, like for spiking, it broke my little heart. I tell you, I had to pull myself together. I had to go out and slap myself across the face that I didn't cry, because I was like, these dear little kids, they're in there. And do you know what? It just goes to show you learn something every day, because she said to me, oh, Dawn, your stop tops are so good, because when a deaf person goes out for a drink, we have to put our drink down and we have to look at each other. So when we're doing sign language, you can't cover your drink because you need both hands to do sign language. And I just learned that yesterday. And do you know what? In the morning, I was sat there crying, thinking, oh, I didn't get that funding bid. And I'm really hacked off of myself because things aren't going right. And there's thinkers and doers in this life, isn't there? And I'm definitely a doer. So I was like, I just want to carry on. And then this little girl comes in, and it took my whole day away. I just thought, this is brilliant. So now we're even going to be helping the deaf community against this vile crime. So that puts a big smile on my face.
And so it should. And so it should. Yeah, as I said, I'm just gonna say now, as in Gary, because we're gonna have to go. So Gary, have you got any sort of last words?
My last words of the day is thank you, Dawn. It's been very educational. It's been brilliant talking to you. You're very passionate about it, and you've inspired me and Ian, the old fella Gammon there. Yeah, you've inspired him today, and you're doing a brilliant job. Thanks for your hard work you're putting out there. You're doing a great job, and you're putting it out there, and everyone's getting to hear about it. We just got to give it a bit more of a push and get it further down the line with these guest safety officers, and start. Hopefully we can push a little bit further for you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Gary. Thanks for having me on, and the lovely Ian Fox.
Yeah. So sorry, I was just going to say, yes, Dawn, you please tell us. You speak. Sorry.
Oh my God! What again? I thought you'd be pleased to get rid of me by now.
I was going to say you say something now. Finish off, and then I'm going to close the show.
Lovely. Well, thank you ever so much for having me on, Ian Fox. I've been giggling about you with your being scared of ghosts and stuff like that. And do you know what? When we had a photo up in London it was a brilliant venue, the E1 nightclub there. And I said, oh, come on, let's have a picture together. And he went, oh, let me take my glasses off. I went, he's not just scared of ghosts, he's vain as well.
Absolutely.
So do you know what? I love your enthusiasm. I love both of you, what you're trying to do. Thanks for having me on and giving me a platform to be able to share some of the brilliant stuff that's going on and some of the dreadful stuff that's going on, so we can raise awareness to try and safeguard on this cowardly crime. Thank you. It
is a cowardly crime. So on that, Ian Fox, the old gammon. And I like to say that Gary's wrong, but he's actually, in this case, I'm 65 and white. I've got red cheeks. I get out of breath. I'm a bit overweight, so I suppose I am a bit of a gammon. But I don't care, because I love the nighttime economy. I love what we do. And I'm really, really enjoying meeting some of the fantastic people that we get to meet. Dawn, thank you very much for being with us. It's been absolutely wonderful. And yeah, we'll meet again. I hope. I suppose I'm going to meet you again, Gary, aren't I? Yeah.
You're going to meet me again, Ian.
So.
Thank you for the enthusiasm. It's always a pleasure to work with you.
I know. I know. Sorry, Dawn. Sorry. We've got to do that.
That's okay, James.
And fancy telling people about my situation with the ghosts. I do get scared. Right. Goodbye, everybody. Have a great day, and we'll see you later. Bye.
See you later, gents.